Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Modern Market. This is our daily show from Monday to Friday at 7 a.m. Eastern Time, 12 p.m. BST, every day of the week, where we discuss all things to do with the modern market. That is the crypto market, the NFT market, and how to make money by leveraging the internet and the latest technologies. I'm your host, B-Check. I am joined by my legendary co-host, Legendary, the OG NFT collector, the airdrop extraordinaire, and the trusted Web3 advisor of artists, brands, and businesses. And we are delighted to say today we are live on YouTube. That is something that people might not know. Points to anyone who finds the link and gets there. I hope it's live. It says that we're live, but I'm not able to check it because I'm concentrating on delivering this show to you right now. Legendary, how are you feeling?
It is a big day for the show. Pretty excited about that. A bit nervous, to be honest, but so far, I think as long as everyone else can hear me, and I hope they can, judging from the reactions, it should be going well.
And I'm so happy that just when you started talking, I could just hear you. Like, people do not appreciate, this is just one of the things that is true. Like, all of the technicalities of all of the stuff of what you need to do to get to this point. There have been people messaging me like, oh, the first thing that you need to do spaces with audio, with like quality audio, like what we've got, there's so many wires that you need to buy, so many adapters, so many other things. And then on top of that now, you know, to go live on YouTube, there's like just a whole other package, a raft of things that you need to try to figure out how to get things going. So, yeah, I agree with you. It's pretty nice to just hear that you can hear and that I can hear and that it seems that people can hear as well. Swizzy, appreciate you there approving that you can actually hear us. Swizzy, your hand is raised. What's up?
Not much. Hi, everyone. Just wanted to say looking good on video.
Thank you. Thank you very much, man. Appreciate it. Appreciate Inside NFTs, Shiv, Sammy, all replying on the YouTube comments. Ryan, aka Funky, replying. Jack. These are all real people. So there's some real names here without, you know, Twitter avatars. So kind of interesting to see that and maybe trying to match names to NFT identities. Legendary. Who's in charge of YouTube comments now? This is just another thing.
Yeah, that's the thing. Someone should be open to open up YouTube and have a look at that.
But we can do that from here, inside in the comment section.
Oh, interesting!
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
It's fun, man. That's how I can read it. Inside.
Oh, that's dope! I love it.
It's live. Shiv says you're live. Sammy says let's go.
Yeah. Raheem says yo. The modern market says yo. I love that. We support
Funky
ourselves.
says that we are we're some handsome devils. I don't disagree with that, Funky. I don't disagree at all. Roberto, what's up? Raheem, what's up? And I think the only thing I was able to comment was yo, because I'm concentrating at the moment. But I think that's okay. I think you all appreciate that. Legendary, how are you doing? Let's think about the weekend and the news. Things are looking pretty good, right?
Yeah, it seems like October is back. Weekend had its good sides, had its bad sides. Obviously, on the bad side of things, I posted it on X. I had my hot wallet drained, fell for a phishing scam for the first time in crypto since 2016 being here. On the good side, at least I got to spend quite some time in big time with Hunter, with Moritz. I think we did level together quite a bit, had a bit of fun, had quite a lot of fun in that. So that was a good and very much needed distraction after the wallet drain.
Yeah, that's pretty good, man. I'm glad you managed to get some time to play some of the games with the people that you like. I think, I mean, one of the things that people always ask when something like this happens, and I know you addressed it on X, but people are always like, oh, what happened? Is there anything that we need to know so that, you know, that doesn't happen to us in future? Do you want to give like just a quick headline thing? I know you've kind of been through it already, but just the TLDR so people might be aware.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was an email that I got on a very private address that I don't share with many people. I was having lunch with my parents, absolutely not focusing. I was using MetaMask on mobile. The thing is, I don't use MetaMask anymore on desktop at all. I use Rebby, where I have transaction simulation. So I'm used to getting that extra layer and step of security. So I was basically a bit more careless because I was used to getting warned and I barely used the mobile wallet. And then I just got an email with an airdrop that was actually waiting to claim, and
Ah,
clicked the link, didn't focus, connected the wallet, obviously signed that malicious message, which gave approval for an NFT collection. Then I signed again. Then I saw Zerion popping up that I'm sending NFTs out of my wallet, and like instantly realized what went wrong. And then the interesting thing happened. And I know we should start with the show, but I'm taking like
no, I
2
think
more minutes.
it's super interesting, helpful.
I reached out to the scammer to see if I can get, I lost some ZTX homes, found the pirates. But the most important thing to me was the Endless Monologue by Lee Shahi, which I
Mm.
won on Barrel File. I think it was in 2021 or 2022. I don't remember that anymore, in an auction. And basically, I was talking to the scammer, and I was like, look, maybe we find a solution. I can pay you something. You send the NFTs back, or I'm just going to flag everything as stolen. OpenSea is pretty fast, and you can't trade everything because the ZTX homes are on Arbitrum. For the Endless Monologue, you don't have the liquidity on OpenSea to sell it immediately. So what happened is he panic dumped the ZTX Genesis homes and everything else, and then he wanted me to pay like $500 or 1K to get that Lee Shahi back, which I think I paid like 9-10K for in that auction. And I went back and forth with him, and I was like, super polite, super friendly, because I was thinking that probably the majority of people would be like extremely aggressive, insulting. And I was like, there's no
Yeah,
point
yeah,
in
yeah.
that. It already happened. Let's see if
Yeah.
we can find a constructive solution. And I was
Mm.
like, look, money is not everything. This is what you are doing. I wish you all the best, wish you all the health. And to me, that Lee Shahi piece has an emotional value. The physical is in my parents' flat, and I would love to have it back.
Mm.
And at this point, he changed his attitude and stance completely, became more friendly, and actually sent it back.
Wow.
So I kept the conversation going with him a bit until I really got it back. And then he even sent me like another additional NFT saying, look, I know you feel shit like now. I know how this feels, but here's like another NFT. Obviously, I can't and won't do anything with it because it's scammed and it has that OpenSea label to it.
Yeah.
But it was a big learning on my end that, not falling for that, being insultive, aggressive, and just try to be constructive, even in a situation like that,
Mm.
actually helped me to recover the asset that was the most valuable to mine.
Yeah, that's a huge learning. I suspect it takes a lot to decide that that's the way you're going to go, probably in opposition to the natural emotion that you're feeling, to decide, like, to be able to put that to bed and just say, okay, this has happened already. Need to figure out a more appropriate solution. Swizzy asked a good question, which I've just brought up here. How did you reach out? Because actually, I mean, I've got a little story to tell. I know we're going to get into the show. I've got a cool little story as well, maybe slightly more positive. But it is funny how people are able to reach out, find people quite easily. So how did you find out who the scam was and be able to get hold of them?
I mean, in that case, it was a phishing scam via email. So it's an email I
Oh,
can
you just
reply
by the
to.
email.
And
Okay,
then that
that's the
person
best.
didn't want to continue the conversation on email, suggested talks as a, like, anonymous messenger, which I didn't know previously. I did look it up to see if it's safe, put it on another computer where I don't have any crypto, put it in a sandbox, started there. And there he had like an anonymous ID that looks like a wallet address. And we had a private chat there.
Interesting. Interesting. Look, man, sorry that happened. Glad that you managed to get some back. And I think that is a super interesting little anecdote for people when you do find yourself in a terrible situation. Sometimes, you know, burning everything down and making the situation worse, even if that might be a valid response, is probably not the way to go. So respect for being able to just figure that out ultimately. I had a bit of a story, but I think we should get into the news. Let's do that. But before we get there, as always, friends, nothing that we say here is financial advice. The modern market is exceptionally risky. And please do help us out by clicking that comment button in the right-hand corner where you can retweet the spaces so we can get as many people in here with all of us as possible. And as always, if you want to follow along, the snapshot is pinned up top. It has the details I am about to share. So please do like it if you find that it brings you some value today. So let's get into it, starting with, let me just get there with the sharing the screen. There we go. Starting with the price action, we have crypto up 3% at 30.6K. We've got ETH up 3% at 1.68K. We've got Solana up 5% at $30. Apes up 1% at 1.1. NFT volume is at 8.9 million. Blur is at 6.1. OpenSea at 2.2. I only have 2 headlines today. We're going to do a slightly different show because number one, crypto rips up. On 7 days, Bitcoin is up 10%, ETH is up 6%, Solana is up 32%, Link is up 39%. Definitely want to talk about all of that happening and kind of some of the lightning rods that we've been speaking about recently, talking about like why we think things are livening up. And then number 2, NFT markets see energy return as many projects rise and Xcopy returns. We've got a bunch of things to touch on. We've got the William Mapan sale to touch on. We've got the Azuki pump with a whale investing more than 500K. We have Xcopy returning. We've got an AI art project called Nami up 10%. And we've got the Michelin project, which did a 2 to 3x as well. Getting into the floor prices and the top sales, we have NFT. We've got CryptoPunks at 47 ETH, Bored Apes at 26, down a couple of percent. Mutants at 5.1, DeGods at 3.6, up 4. Captains down a little bit at 4.1. Azuki's up 4% at 5.4. Penguins at 5.2. Moonbirds have been very, very high up at 1.8. Big rise for them. And Nouns at 36 ETH. Top sales, Autoglyph selling for 150 ETH, CryptoPunk VR selling for 58.7 ETH. That's $99,000. Legendary. Those were the headlines. That was the price action. Any numbers that you like there?
We like all the numbers, but I think the Autoglyph stands out. We haven't seen an Autoglyph sale in quite a while, I think. But in general, it's just nice to have a bunch of green numbers.
It is very nice to have a bunch of green numbers. I don't disagree with you at all. Let's think about crypto then a little bit. We have had some sustained rises now for the last few days. As I said, on 7 days, Bitcoin's up 10%, ETH is up 6, Solana at 32%, Link at 39. I had this tweet from DFarmer where he tweeted out, I think it was 2 days ago, this is the first time in this whole bear market where a couple of coins are about to break their accumulation range with conviction. This is where you stop shitposting and start truly paying attention. And I'm not saying that we called this necessarily. Well, maybe I am saying that. However, we have been speaking in the last week, and I can't remember which day it was last week, but we started to say like something is changing. Like there's an energy changing, stuff's getting exciting. I remember you were talking about gaming so much after the ZTX airdrop, which was not last week, the week before. That really got you excited. And it just felt like there was an energy shift. What's your thought on that?
Yeah, I think the thing with hosting a daily show is that you have a pretty good sentiment on what's going on in the market. And we've basically seen this change from, thinking what are the news of the day, mostly also having something negative to report on, and that shifting into a sentiment where we just can't catch up with everything that's going on in the show anymore. We had 2 very art-heavy shows last week, and after the show, we were chatting, and I was like, there was so many gaming news on the side that we didn't touch at all. I had no idea about the art news that were going on. You weren't too deep into the gaming side of things. And it feels like there's excitement on many levels happening right now that we just haven't seen in a while in the market. The question, though, is how sustainable will that be?
Yeah, I think that's definitely fair. Focusing on crypto for a second though, because I think we're going to get a chance to get into NFTs in a moment. DFarmer went on to say, for all those asking, there's quite a few actually, and some are too small to comfortably post for a big account. This is in reference to which coins are going to break out of their accumulation. This was 2 days ago. He mentioned Solana and Link are massive and obvious enough that I'd start by adding those to my watch list. I don't know much about Link, for example, so I'd be interested to hear what your thoughts are there. The main thing that I would say about Solana, and again, I want to hear your thoughts on this too, is that when people seemed to be evaluating the potential upside for the various coins of the moment, one of the ways I've seen people do that is by thinking about what each coin's all-time high was, at what discount the coins are currently trading to in relation to that all-time high. So if Bitcoin's was 69k and they're at and it is at about 30k now, that's just over a 2x. ETH was at maybe 4.5 or pushing 5. We're at 1.6 ish, so that's about a 3x. Solana, on the other hand, was down at 18, 19 not so long ago, and the all-time high there, I believe, was over 200, if I remember correctly, which is more than a 10x away. I don't know if that's an appropriate way to think about things, but I guess my first question is, what do you think about that style of analysis where you're comparing against all-time high and seeing how many X's you've got to get to those things? And then second, what do you think about Solana? What do you think about Link?
To answer your first question, I think it's important to not only look at the all-time high, but maybe have a look at the 52-week low. I think Solana was at $8 at lowest in the last year, and now the recovery to almost $30 is like a 3.5x on that. And I don't think that for Solana in particular, it would make sense to look at the all-time high, especially it has been hit so hard with all of the FTX story, and Solana was always more volatile than other cryptocurrencies. So I just don't think now that we see a recovery, it would be a very reasonable thing to look at the all-time high and be like, yo, it's a 30x away. We have a lot of upside to pump and get back there because everything else is on the rise.
So just to clarify, so you don't think that's necessarily the right way to look at it?
No, I think it's in isolation, it's too little to do that.
I see. So what do you think then about Solana and Link? I mean, I definitely don't know much about Link, so interested to know if you do know anything. And Solana, obviously it was heavily involved with the FTX collapse, very tarnished as a consequence, but there have been very, very strong proponents for it. And it seems to be a very strong community over there who love everything about it, love the low cost, love the speed, a very strong community, undoubtedly. So do you think that that is something that is, has legs and that is as useful as the others? And then Sammy and Funky and Moshe, I see your hands raised. We're going to come around to you in just a second.
Yeah, I'll get Link out of the way because I was not really involved in the Chainlink ecosystem, so can't comment on that. On Solana, however, I think if you look at the last year, you've seen the DLabs ecosystem, DGOTs, migrating out of Solana, and there was a period where people were asking themselves, will other big projects follow? Will, I don't know, OK Bears do the same? But the community seemed to be pretty resilient and did stick with Solana. And I think that in itself is a very, very strong story. However, again, just going back, and maybe I don't want to be the one to ruin the euphoria right now, but I just don't think that now looking at the all-time high and saying Bitcoin is only a 2x away, Solana is a 30x away, it will catch up to, relatively speaking, to that 2x from all-time high and now rip to $140 or $120.
Interesting. I've definitely seen people exceptionally bullish. So interesting to hear your perspective there. Thanks. Sammy, welcome to the stage. If people don't know, they should know. Sammy is a digital asset consultant ambassador at Mockaverse and advisor at Courtyard. Sammy, what's your thoughts on this price action that we've seen over the last few days? and anything in particular on Solana and Link, or anything else that you think is valid price action wise?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's systemic links obviously between all the cryptos. So I think at the moment most stuff follows Bitcoin in the general market, but how I'd be positioning, so specifically with Chainlink, it's an oracle. So I'm big on real world assets, so tokenization, and there's always going to be that link, excuse the pun, between the physical and digital. So pricing of those assets. So I think for me, that's probably why I would look towards, okay, well, what's going to be the big thing next cycle? Whether that's social fi or real world assets, and place your bets that way. I don't think looking at what happened previously is necessarily going to be the best way of looking at things. I think for me personally, real world asset tokenization, we've already seen like stocks, bonds, some of the big banks, and already partner with the likes of Chainlink. So I think it's relatively a safe bet that's probably going to be here next cycle. So I think for me personally, Chainlink's a pretty good bet from that standpoint. But there are competition in that regard. It just depends on what you personally think is going to be the main hit the next cycle.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair point. The interesting thing to me about Chainlink in particular is just how many people, and I mean, I'm not saying there was so many people doing this, but there are definitely a variety of people who kind of pick that as well as Solana. And I'm not specifically sure why that would be the case. There's so many coins with potential upside, given how far we've fallen in the last period of time. That I wasn't.
Well, I think they've. So I think with Chainlink, they had the news recently that I think they partnered with ANZ to work out pricing of effectively like stocks and bonds and stuff like that. And I think because you've got news of what London Stock Exchange looking to go through like an asset tokenization program.
Sure.
You've got UBS, you've got a number of different banks. So from a security standpoint, they're going to want that reliable pricing. And I think you're kind of seeing Chainlink take the lead and actually get in front and actually do that trial run ahead of when that goes live. So yeah, I think it's just a matter of when. It's not really if anymore. So that's probably going to be coming live in the next couple of years, I would have thought. It'll take a while for these banks, these big institutions, to get the systems and processes in place, but I think they'll probably do like a parallel run in the meantime. So they'll do the typical way that they're doing it, and then they'll have a tokenization program alongside it just to make sure that it's working properly. But yeah, it could take a number of years, but I think to me, it makes sense as the next cycle that these big banks are going to be looking to tokenize the securities, just because it's a more optimal ledger of recording these transactions between institutions, not just internally as well.
That makes a lot of sense. Semi, let me follow up with a question. Do you know on the Link token what role it plays in the Chainlink ecosystem? Is it governance? Does it serve any other functions? Are you familiar with that?
I can't say I haven't dug into the specifics, whether it's just a governance token or whether it's actually going to be used for something. But I mean, given the price action, I'm assuming someone smarter than me has probably looked into it and noted that something.
We always assume that, Sammy. We always assume that.
Yeah, I probably shouldn't assume.
Yeah, I see Funky with a comment on that on YouTube and also waving. So I think he says he has intel on Link.
Yeah, let's hear it, Funky.
Yeah.
GM fam, you guys look spectacular. Let me just start there. And before we go any further, make sure everybody who's in the audience right now likes or follows the New Modern Market handle here on X. Go sub to the YouTube channel. They're already up to 87. Let's break 100. Come on now, fam. All right, Link. Lots have been happening. We've been talking about this internally at my company at Lucky Friday. So a couple things have changed with Link in the last, say, 6-8 months, maybe a year. For one, staking is now available. So I don't know if you guys know this, but staking was never a part of the product for Chainlink. Now they have staking. More importantly, I think the thing that's being missed in the big headlines right here is the Swift announcement. So if you guys don't know about what Chainlink has done, the CCIP protocol is this new cross-chain interoperability protocol that will allow message passing between other blockchains using the oracles. So they're going to be smart contract agnostic. This, to me, is a game changer for Chainlink. But the Swift announcement is even bigger, right? And I'm sure the people who are the XRP army or whatever just must be in tears, because if you remember, the whole idea about Ripple was cross-border like payments. And now, as Sammy already elucidated, we know tokenization is coming for real-world assets. All that's coming down the pike. And what's the Swift partnership with Chainlink? Think about this. Swift moves $5 trillion a day across international borders. If Chainlink can even capture 0.1% of that as fees, as things continue to tokenize and everything else, and that somehow gets sent to token holders or treasury or what, I think it's going to put an enormous buy pressure on Link, NFA, and of course all that. I used to hold Link. I sold it when the bear was, kind of settling in. I'm probably going to start reaccumulating now because of this news, as a fan of interoperability. So a lot of things happening. I'll drop some links in the comments if you guys want to read up on this stuff. You guys can, just learn a little bit more about what's happening with Swift and these other incredible announcements from Chainlink.
Yeah, thanks so much for that, man. That's really interesting. I hadn't realized that Swift had been working with Chainlink. I've just pulled up an article as well. You can see it on the YouTube channel where it says, yeah, Swift Chainlink tokenization experiment successfully transfers value across multiple blockchains. This is dated August the 31st, 2023. So it was a little bit of time ago, but as you say, like that's a very significant development, it seems. And so that'd be super helpful. But yeah, Funky, thanks so much. Definitely do drop the articles in the comments if people want to read more on that. It does seem very interesting. Legendary, did you have any other questions on the token, which maybe Funky might be able to answer? And then definitely want to hear from Moshe and Token Professor as well.
Nothing to ask. Curious to hear from our other speakers too.
Awesome. Let's go to Moshe then, the doctor of NFTs and Web3.
GM, Prognosis Terminal.
How you doing?
Hope you guys had a great weekend. Yeah, it's interesting to hear about Chainlink as a scaling solution. I wonder how it actually differentiates itself from the Polygon scaling solution, because I think there was, you spoke about ways in which smart contracts could communicate with each other, and I swear that was an EIP at some stage. I think it's like a 4337. But anyway, talking about the price action, when you look at cryptocurrency in general, as we approach the end of the year, you can sort of understand why there are these bullish positionings. Like when you look at, we've got a lot of things to look forward to next year. We've got Bitcoin halving. We've also got Morgan Stanley's more recent positioning on cryptocurrency being crypto spring, as well as the MiCA regulations that are coming in early next year as well, which will essentially enable investors a form of protection.
Yeah, makes sense. I think those are all very good factors. Thank you so much for that, Moshe. Token Professor, I see your hand was raised just at the time. I think we had some questions on Chainlink. Did you want to come in on that, or did you have something else to add?
Yes, hi guys. Lovely Monday to everyone. Yeah, just on the actual utility of the Chainlink token. So basically, it's an ecosystem token. On the one hand, you basically have to stake Link if you want to be a node provider. And on the other hand, you basically have to Link is like a payment token if you want to use the Oracle and if you want to take if you want to use the Oracle in any way. So the way it works, you basically stake Link, and then you can access Oracle data, and that can also be used as a security measure. You can slash it if you basically share the wrong data. So it's basically just like an ecosystem token. The question for me is, how do they? The question for me is it a good investment token? Because obviously, as usage increase, price will increase, but I'm not sure if it's a good buy in the long term, versus, or if it's better to basically, like Sami said, real world asset tokenization. If it's better to maybe invest some projects which are directly working on that and have more upside potential in the short term.
That's super interesting, Token Professor. I have another question for you. We met the other day. I know you're very well versed in the financial side of things. You're an ex-banker, and clearly you read up on this. Am I understanding this correctly then, if you're saying that you have to stake Link in order to use it, when these other big institutions come in and want to use the Oracle for whatever reason, would they be expected, based on your research or whatever you know up to this point, would they be expected to basically enter by doing the exact same thing? That's how it works? Or is there an alternative onboarding for people who are, you know, not from this universe?
Yes, I mean, the way I understand it is that they will also have to basically buy into the Link ecosystem. Of course, how that is done then in reality is of course a different question. I mean, they're not going to market by Link,
Sure.
right? They're probably going to approach the company and do some kind of OTC deals, probably also get discounts depending
Yes.
on what they want to use and how long they want to use it, and their goals. But yes, generally speaking, unless they change something in their tokenomics, they would have to buy into the ecosystem.
Very interesting point. Learning a lot about Link here. I do like the fact that it's such a useful tool. Like, I definitely think that. Again, I'm not necessarily certain on the price action either, but at least it's something useful, and it's doing something useful that lots of important people deem interesting and important. Funky, want to give you a chance to come back on it. Then a quick one from Kusho. I want to move away slightly from Link, Kusho. So I'm not sure what your point was, but Funky first.
Just real quick, one of the things I just wanted to say as a general comment, I feel as if the way we value tokens and ecosystems and everything else, with like comparing to previous all-time highs and stuff, that's going to go out the window in this coming cycle, because I feel with the regulatory clarity coming and all these institutional players, I feel as if, again, not mentioned on place, things like Chainlink are going to have an important use case and value moving forward deeper into the future, like as we continue to consolidate a lot of this market, because some of these projects, let's be honest, they're just total vaporware, they're crap.
Yeah.
They don't have any real use case. I think things like Chainlink are going to be good investments, again, NFA, over the long term because of the institutional interest in interoperability.
Very fair point. I definitely do not disagree with the idea that many other coins are vaporware, because they are. I don't know why they exist, somehow have super high market caps by virtue of a lot of the supply being hidden from public, who would probably dump it as soon as you could get your hands on it. Kusho, final point on Link, if you have one, then want to just think about the macro situation a bit more broadly for crypto and why this has all been happening.
Unfortunately, I don't have anything much of a hot points to make. You guys are looking good, by the way. I wanted to kind of ask Token Professor, because Chainlink also has a bunch of use cases in development of smart contracts for multiple uses. It has its verifiable randomness function and Chainlink functions and all of that. Do you need to stake Link to use all those other use cases as well?
I'll just jump in here. I don't know that, so I'd have to research on that. So I don't want to say anything wrong. So sorry, I can't provide any answer on that.
DYOR, Kusho. Do your own research. Token Professor cannot do that for you. But if anyone does do that research, please share, because I'd be interested to know, and I'm not going to do it. So that was very interesting. Glad to learn a lot about Link, because I wasn't certain about that. And I just found it interesting because I just saw lots of people speak about Link in the same bracket as Solana for this moment that we're in at the moment. And I wasn't really certain why. So interesting to hear that perspective. Lindri, any other thoughts on the crypto move, like the Bitcoin move up, the ETH move up, the Solana move up? Like, where do you sense we're going in that respect for now?
I think we touched a bit on that last week after the fake approval of the BTC spot ETF. You had the BlackRock CEO Larry Fink sharing his thoughts that there is like a pent-up interest in cryptocurrencies and BTCs, and the fake approval kind of showed that. If you notice the immediate reaction, that it rallied 3K up in the first 30 minutes. After that, it turned out it was fake news, obviously. On the other hand, I think that the confidence in the SEC approval is growing even more of the ETF. I think you also had the SEC finally laying down the case against Ripple. And someone also made the point, I didn't think about it, but I found it interesting that actually the trial around SBF is actually useful in highlighting the narrative around decentralization once more and the move away from centralized players and institutions.
Yes.
And there's also been tied to that stablecoin flows into Bitcoins that have been increasing recently. So it's not necessarily a macro level because it's still crypto specific, but on a like quote unquote crypto macro level, those could be some of the factors, and at least they are the most common ones that different media outlets pick up.
Yeah, I think those are all very fair points. I wanted to share one other point which has been made by Pio from the morning show the other day. This is something he brings up quite often, and it's also something which we in our, to the extent that you might be based in Western Europe or in the States, just never quite appreciate what it might be like for people in other particular circumstances. This is clearly one of the big theses for Bitcoin. He's shared this video where I believe in Argentina on a TV show, someone is going around treating the central bank as a piñata, like beating it over and over again, and they're shouting enough of inflation. And what he's written is, this is happening right in front of your face. Pay attention to it. Understand why it's happening. Don't just ignore it because you live in a first world country. So I think, look, it's a funny video to watch. It's very enjoyable to see them beat the piñata version of the central bank down. But underlying that, and I think this was Pio's point, although I might be putting words in his mouth, but it's kind of how I evaluate it, is that there's like real pent up. I mean, you talked about the CEO of BlackRock saying there was pent up demand for crypto, but there's also, in addition to that, like real pent up frustration in the current central banking system, and how it is deeply failing certain people. And I know certain countries might be better off and other countries may be worse off, but it's definitely not helping certain people. And I think that helps the overall thesis for crypto to some extent. Legendary, any thoughts on the piñata, the beating of the central bank, and anything else that I just said?
Yeah, absolutely. You say someone is smashing that piñata. Did you have a look who it was?
Javier Milei.
Exactly, who is actually a politician, apparently far-right populist, according to The Guardian, and also a member of the Chamber of Deputies of Argentina. So it is also a political statement, which honestly makes it, no matter if it's far-right, far-left, it's not about that, but being a political statement makes it even stronger, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. And I've actually read a lot of people in the US now, and this is not something that's very well reflected by either party, a lot of people looking specifically for like pro crypto candidates, because I don't know that either side, well, I think the Democrats have been quite poor on the crypto side and quite anti it, but it's definitely not something that has been taken up strongly by any party. In my understanding, I'd be happy for someone to correct me if I'm wrong. Jack, I see your hand raised. What's your thought on either of those kind of factors that we've noticed of why things might be moving up now?
Yeah, I've got to agree. I think the video that Pio shared was like, it to me, it's highlights a real obvious thing that we probably don't think about every day because we don't live in those countries. But if you think inflation's been bad in these MEDC places, like, and you're looking at the price of eggs or bread or something and going like, this is ridiculous. It's actually triple the price in the UK than it was like a year and a half ago. It's in those other countries, like some countries won't take their own currency. They will only take the dollar. Like I've in Southeast Asia, that is something that I've actually, like, I got a bunch of the local currency and was like, oh, you won't take it. You literally will not take my money because the inflation is that bad.
Yeah.
And then even if you do look at those, like look at America, for example, you really don't have to go too far back in history to see how those central banks have failed, even those countries. Like if you look at the 2007 crisis, you look at how basically those subprime mortgages were like set up, and those like, the subprime bonds were set up. It was just ridiculous that we as the taxpayers and all over the world, we paid for this, because also Europe basically got involved with those investments. And it obviously, it took us all down. We all should know that story. If you want just a really brief summary of it, go watch The Big Short, because it's one of the most pro crypto arguments you could ever watch. But that, one person went to jail for that. Like that was the big point at the end of the film, is only one person went to jail for that. And then whether these sweeping changes that were going to protect us in the future, no, they weren't. So there's the government also failing on that end. Like the same scenarios could happen again. And there are similar things. There's similar things in the market right now that really harrowingly echo those exact things that got us in that position really only like 15 years ago. So yeah, that's sort of my point, is it's a double-edged sword.
Look, very, very, very fair points. I think it's important to take that international perspective with this. And I think that's what is missing sometimes. I think, yeah, as you say, I think people are looking at, often look at it, look at crypto from a very, you know, people might think, or they might accuse people in crypto of being like very anti-establishment, where they are kind of trying to uproot the traditional system. But it serves a much bigger thing if you take an international view, I think. Want to hear a couple more views on this, but then we also want to get into the next set of news, because we've been focusing on the crypto side. I'm kind of enjoying it. We don't normally do this. So, and I think it's important, especially after the weekend we've just had. So let's go to Moshe first. What's your kind of additional points on maybe Bitcoin or the other crypto moves up we've seen?
Yeah, when I see posts like that, I do wonder when this big showdown between CBDC and these decentralized cryptocurrencies are going to ensue, right? And so I looked up the CBDC piloting schemes, and they've already launched 11 of them, and they've currently got about 32 in development. And I do wonder, I wonder if next year there's just going to be this big showdown as, you know, we see this evolution of regulation being put into place. And the other thing is that when we talk about things like CBDC and the adoption of cryptocurrency, as well as like, you know, we talk about spot ETFs and Bitcoin ETFs and those anticipations around it, I do wonder what, you know, I say the normies, but what normies will think about that in terms of their appetite to adopt, for example, an ETF. And I would say for the most part, normies don't necessarily hold any positionings in ETFs.
Sure.
But what we see is that the market responds incredibly well to, you know, headlines such as that, as a follow-on step to adoption. So yeah, that's my thought process.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, as you say, there was a real response when there were rumors of that having taken place last week. Just your quick point on your stable coin, central bank, CBDC, central bank digital currencies. That's one of the things I've been trying to think about a lot. Like, what happens when we do live in a universe where those have been issued, those become the preferred way of transacting? Because I don't think it would be unreasonable to assume that governments of the places where you live would want you to transact in the preferred method or the government-backed method. And I just have been working through my thoughts of what are the implications for the current batch of stablecoins, as well as the other crypto. But actually, in my head, it was more of a question of like CBDCs versus current batch of stablecoins. And I haven't come to a conclusion there, but just definitely something that's been on my mind. Moshe, wondered if you had a thought on that.
Yeah, just briefly.
Want to check in with Legendary as well.
Yeah, just briefly. I think the thing is with CBDC, it's under the allure of being convenient, right? And then not to go too far down the rabbit hole, but when you look at whatever the social currency is doing within China about, you know, if you cross the road and the lights aren't red or green or whatever, then you get penalized on your own currency. I think, you know, the big sell is this convenience thing, but I think there is a broader picture to consider when we look at CBDC.
Yeah, fair point. Legendary, just want to check in with you there to see if you had any other thoughts.
I think when we talked about CBDCs, to me, the really interesting thing was to see, I think it was Hong Kong or Singapore working with the Middle East together on their CBDC policies, and actually seeing that countries who don't have a shared currency come together to try to develop cross-border policies on how to handle CBDCs, to actually take it that step further and think about, if I already go for a digital currency, how can I go for like cross-border compatibility, which to me is a sign that some regulations actually take this serious beyond just an experiment if they think about it in an international context.
Yeah, very, very fair points. I'm conscious of time. We do have to move on. Token Professor, I want to give you the final take on this. Kusho, we're going to have to hold your one for the moment. Token Professor, conclude this point for us, please.
Yeah, no, I just want to really quick recap that, in the past years, Bitcoin has kind of, or just generally crypto has been a sponge for excess liquidity, people looking for outsized returns. And that also, it's nice to remind ourselves that there are certain use cases, like you said, in Argentina, hedge against inflation, but also as conflict kind of ramps up in the world, people are also using it to move assets. And that's also an important use case where, when in conflict, banks shut down, you cannot move big funds anymore. Crypto becomes a viable option if you need to move assets, and that's the only way you can do it.
Absolutely. A couple of the very, very important aspects of crypto outlined there. Thank you very much for that, Token Professor. Great discussion on crypto, guys. We don't normally do that as much. I have a feeling we might have to start doing that a little bit more as we move forward. But before we get into the next headlines, because we want to talk about the NFT side of things, which have really picked up in terms of excitement and energy in the last few days, let's get into the Web3 Roundup. As always, it's pinned up top. It's in the snapshot. We've got the Web3 Roundup and the Creator Corner, a few pieces of news to get you up to speed with what else has been happening in the last 24 hours. So number one, after 1 week, the Flooring Protocol reports a TVL of 13,683 ETH and 31,878 ETH of volume. Pretty successful launch from them. Number two, Nounsdale esports team secures a spot at the International, which is a huge gaming tournament. So well done to them. Next, Chimpers announces Chimpvolutions, where you can evolve your chimps with gems without diluting the supply. So this is an attempt to create new NFTs. Well, not new ones, but create new designs without diluting the supply. Interesting approach. Number four, Xcopy is back. He launches Algo Bro, which is going to be 42 editions at 2 ETH and a little bit of alpha. If you're not paying attention, if you are an Xcopy holder, there is a raffle taking place in the Discord. I shouldn't have said that, but that's where you can get involved with that. Next, Creator Corner. Thread Guy interview with Williams Racing F1 driver Alex Albon does almost 2 million views. Great to see some of that Rug Radio crew really crushing it on the content. Number two, NFT God shares $250,000 revenue stream, 100,000 coming from X Consulting. Great to see creators really being able to monetize properly in this universe. And finally, Melissa Vidirect kicks off Regen on Art Blocks with her new collection. The context is the project name references Sudan's common sandalwood incense, a continuation of Sandalia. It interweaves personal memories and familial ties amidst the growing conflict in Sudan. Interesting mix there. Legendary. That was the Web3 news. That was the Creator Corner. Should we get into the final headline for today?
Absolutely. Let's do that.
Let's do it. You want me to go?
Yeah. Take it away.
So, looking at Tyler's kind of summary of what's been happening in the past, 48 hours over the weekend, we just had a bunch of projects which are up. And obviously we mentioned already, that's great to see. Very, very positive. Just wanted to kind of touch on each of them and explore what we thought was going on, because clearly something's going on. And so we wanted to just talk about each of them to a smaller point, or for however much time we have, because we are running out of time today. But in summary, the NFT board is broadly green. The William Mapan Sketchbook A auction, which we spoke about a lot over the last week. I spoke about it a lot. It was very interesting to me. They ended with $10,777 being the minimum bid. So that was the minimum that each was bought for. It raised almost $650,000 in total. And the floor price is now $12.5K. There's actually been a sale on that. There's been a sale at 12.1K. So after that initial sale, there've been 5 sales on secondary. The first one was beneath the floor price, and then every one after that has been above. So there's been sales at 11,000, 11,000, 10,000, 10,000. Okay, it dipped back beneath the floor price again. Now it's gone up with the previous sale selling for 12K. Then there was a whale pumping Azuki and Elementals with $500,000. Both floors went up quite significantly. We already mentioned Xcopy launching this new edition with Manifold. There was an AI art project called Nami, which 10x'd from a 0.05 ETH mint. Now, it went to 0.5. I think it's about 0.3 now. And then the Michelin Explorers jumped 70% to 0.16 ETH, which was a 3x from mint. Now I think that's back to a 2x, about 0.1. So all kinds of positive price action across the NFT market. Wanted to ask you, Legendary, like out of these 4 or 5 ones, like what took your interest? What explanation would you be able to provide for like what's going on in any of these at the moment?
I think what immediately stood out.
Oh, you've cut out for me, mate.
Conviction that whales are showing in the Azuki ecosystem is unparalleled almost to any other collection. That's just fascinating to see what a tight-knit community I don't know if this whale particularly was part of the Spirit DAO, but in general, what the tight-knit community the Spirit DAO is.
Yeah, like I have a question on that. Like, what is Azuki doing right in that respect? Because it seems to be the case that over and over again, they have these exceptionally large holders who are willing to come in and tie up huge amounts of capital in that ecosystem. Do you have any thoughts on that? And I'd actually love to hear Jack's thoughts as well, as someone who, I don't know if he might be in that ecosystem, but you know, tangentially always has something to comment on them. So I'd love to hear Jack in a second as well. Legendary, first thoughts?
I mean, obviously, I'm not a part of the Spirit DAO, but my assumption would be that the line of communication in the background probably might be pretty solid. Someone pointed it out in a completely different context when it came to Web3 gaming that, you know, Web3 is a whale's game and you got to embrace it. And it just might be the case that there is a solid communication and link between the team and the Spirit DAO members. But again, that's just me speculating as I'm not part of that group.
Yeah, fair enough. Whatever's going on, I think that DAO is pretty crucial to its success. And yeah, it's clearly able to attract routinely the highest of investment, actually. Jack, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I've interviewed both. I'm not in X Plus, which is the D Gods Whale group, not in Spirit DAO either. But I think the main difference between the two is that with Spirit DAO, you do not need to hold multiple Azuki actually, although it did set up with the idea of like the rarest trait, which is the Spirit trait. And with X Plus, you do need 10 D Gods to enter that side. But what Spirit DAO do as well, which is, you know, they've got a great network. The reason you don't need 10 Azuki or Spirit Azuki is because they look for those community members who are adding tremendous value, and they attack it in a different way. But they also have been known to like acquire as part of that DAO a lot of the rarer Azukis and actually, you know, pick up the NFTs as part of that process as part of that DAO. To me, I don't believe X do that. I could be wrong. But I think they're fundamentally the two differences is not only do you get support by these whales, but the DAO itself is structured where I believe you do have to pay like a significant amount to join the DAO for Spirit DAO, which is not collecting the actual NFTs. This is a direct contribution to that DAO. And as part of that contribution, one of the things is to favor the brand. And you've seen that with the Spirit DAO comic book. But the other thing is they do, you know, go for those rarer traits, and they do have their own vaults, which supports it as well. So there's sort of two key points that I think is really important to know about the Spirit DAO.
That's awesome, man. Really, really good to hear that perspective. I think we've probably run out of time for the rest of the things, but I'm glad we were able to share a cross-section of things that have been doing really well. I'm glad we had a longer discussion on crypto because it's something which we're obviously hyper involved in, and we don't necessarily touch on it as much because we're focused on the NFT stuff. But we did touch on all the other things that are going on, and we will continue to do so over and over again, every single day, Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. Eastern Time, 12 p.m. BST, every day of the week, on live on X, as always, via this Twitter Spaces, and also now live on YouTube. So please do follow the Modern Market account. It is a co-host. We've just set it up and we're kind of going through the process of making it better, and it will get better, but just follow that. That's where you'll be able to get all of the news for the show, announcements of the show, details, clips as well will be coming, and you can also find the YouTube account in the bio of the Modern Market account, so you can see us if you want to. Guys, this has been a fantastic discussion. Really enjoyed it. Legendary, thank you so much for co-hosting as always. Thank you to our speakers as always, and our audience. We're very grateful that you're on this journey with us from Twitter Spaces first, now moving on to the next phase of the journey. Have a wonderful day. We really appreciate you. Take care and see you soon. Bye bye.